it almost doesn't matter because they have somebody, some group set up to vector those things to control, counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO. Um, and it's funny because I really wasn't aware of this whole COINTELPRO thing until about 2001 when I started getting attacked. And I was desperate to understand what the hell is going on, what is motivating these people, to just get out there and spout absolute utter bullshit. What can possess somebody that way? So I began to do research, I spent 10 years studying psychopathy just to try to understand it. And that's when I encountered counterintelligence and I realized, there's my answer, because they have a program for everybody. And it really made me understand that what we're dealing with here is it's multi-generational, and the reason it's multi-generational is because it's being managed from hyperdimensional realms. Because I pointed out before, when you're dealing with pathology, people who are psychopaths or other deviant minds, they don't think about creating something that will benefit their offspring or their grandchildren or their future generations. They think about what they want now, what benefits them now. So they don't have a plan that's gonna, set something up for future generations. Look at what's going on right now. This crazed, maddened drive to decimate the population. I mean, we just had this whole COVID thing, and it looks like, as the evidence continues to emerge, that it really was a part of a plan to commit genocide on the human race. And we also have this transgenderism, which is also a form of genocide. And we have this unregulated or uncontrolled drive for people to have abortions, which is also a form of genocide. And we have poison in our foods. We have, the epidemics of various illnesses, particularly in the U.S., but elsewhere, related to eating Western style food, which is also kind of a genocide. So it looks like there is some kind of genocidal impulse. And of course, we have Klaus Schwab. You will have nothing and you will be happy. And you will eat the bugs, and you won't have a car, and you'll live in a 15-minute cities, and you'll get a basic income of some sort, and you'll just, be slaves.
Become a member on Patreon to watch the ad-free video version of this interview. The link is in the description. Transhumanism.
Beyond the forbidden.
I think it was last spring of 2023. I made a meme on Twitter. It was just a simple meme. I've mentioned this a few other times. It was just holy shit, I can't remember his name. The World Economic Forum guy. Schwab. So I made a meme of him. The Joker, the paint, the eyeballs, and the face, the red. I put it over his face. I kind of did that editing and stuff, and I said something like, "You must obey World Economic Forum, like obey from the movie They Live."
Yeah.
And so I made that, but I started during the process of making it, I just started feeling unease, right? Unease. I don't know why. And then when I was about to upload it to Twitter, I just had this over sense of like, I don't know, fear. I don't know what it is, Laura. And since I'm like almost fear and dread, I haven't felt like that ever since. And so my question to you, and I've been wanting to ask you this ever since I've been trying to get you on the show. What is that? See, I mentioned it before with a few other researchers, yes, on the show. Is he like in touch with like some kind of interdimensional army
I,
or something to where they send out these psychic vampires whenever they know something, you know what I mean? Like, what's your thoughts on that? And what do you mean by you've been attacked too, you know?
well, I'm pretty sure that they're all connected in, to like dark energies and dark, I mean, especially like Schwab and his coterie of sycophants, that they're connected to, some really, really dark energy.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've always found is when you interact with that, and it happens whether, well, you feel it more acutely, and you're more aware of it if it's like an in-person interaction. You meet like a psychopath or somebody who's really evil, and you just get this sick feeling, and then you feel like you need a shower after the guy. But that connection can be made via the internet as well if you engage. And by doing what you were doing, you were in a sense engaging. Now you can engage without the connection, coming back on you, but you have to be really aware. And then, of course, there are situations where you don't want to engage. I get pretty gleeful when I go on like Twitter/X. I hate when they change it. I mean, Twitter was just ridiculous enough, but at least you have some kind of a word you can work with. But I get kind of gleeful when I'm reposting things that are like really sticking it to them. But there are some things I don't repost because I get that feeling, like you don't want to do that. You don't want to go there. So yeah, there is an ephemeral psychic connection that can come to you via your computer. And it's not just like programming signals or something like that. It's an actual a psychic tube, if you will. Um,
Almost like a portal, maybe in a way.
well, yeah, if you want to call it that, it's like a conduit of some sort, or like a drinking straw, one that's very long, whatever. But I mean, this is one of the reasons. This is kind of a silly explanation, but it's one of the reasons people have cyber sex, because they get a connection, you know. And I mean, otherwise, why would you imagine that two people interacting on a computer would engage in such activities if they weren't having some kind of an actual visceral connection?
Hmm.
I mean, otherwise, it's just sitting there on the screen. If you're watching a movie of somebody and they're not directly interacting with you, they're acting, you don't get that connection. But you're watching a video of somebody who is aware of your presence. They're looking at you, they're talking to you, or sending you an email. Maybe you're not even seeing their face. And there is a connection. And you can get that for very nefarious purposes, also, such as interacting with the beast or its system. And as for attack, that's, I mean, just look at what they did to Donald Trump.
Hmm.
I mean, the defamation, the accusations, the outright lies, the complete program. That's what they did to me starting back in 2001. So when I saw them doing it to Donald Trump, I recognized it. I smelled it. I could taste it because it was done to me. And just, you know, I can give, specific examples of how ridiculous it is, but you'll just find a lot of websites or places on the internet, if you search for my name, where they are repeating the same kind of lies and bullshit and smears and whatever that they, put out there about Donald Trump. I mean, the most egregious one I can remember what they did about him was, the pee gate. He was supposed to be in Russia and having some kind of a sexual tryst and peeing on the bed or something like that, which was completely made up. They made stuff up about me, just completely made up. And the idea was to just destroy me, destroy my reputation, make it so nobody would ever listen to me, like me, that they would be automatically programmed to hate, dislike, or distrust me. And it's really worked on Donald Trump. I mean, it's kind of really worked on me. But I mean, there are people I know who are rational, relatively intelligent people, and you say the name Donald Trump, and they just go into this frenzy. I just
They
hate
get
that.
triggered. They get triggered.
Yeah, it's the Trump derangement syndrome, and then they just go. And I mean, and a friend of mine and I said, "Well, wait a minute, why?" And then she started repeating the lies, and I said, "Stop with the first one." And I went through it, and I said, "That's not true," and I explained why, and I showed her the proof. And then the second one, two, and I went through two or three of them. And do I need to go through every single one, to show you how that isn't true? Well, I just hate him. I mean, the programming is so deep that even if you show them that everything that they've heard or have been programmed to believe is wrong, they're still gonna hate. And that's how crazy it is. So yeah. And of course there's other kinds of attack, physical injuries, physical illnesses, attacks on my family. Uh, there was even a time when they were, stalking around. I was writing an expose on some of these uh, international child molesting pedophiles, and I was getting close to something that was really not very nice. I ended up taking it down because it brought so much attack that I had to take it down because, for the safety of my family. But I mean, they were like cutting our fence, taking lug nuts off my car and doing things like that. So I had to stop. So
So, so with Trump being attacked, well, first off, before I ask you what I was going to ask you, like, yes, nobody's perfect in politics. You know what I mean? But my question is, are you perfect? Nobody's perfect. You know what I mean? Like I've done some bad things I regret. You know what I mean? But we grow every day's a new day, and you just try to do perfect each day. You can't dwell on the past and things you've done in the past. But uh secondly, Biden, he's incompetent. He's fallen. But anyways, with you being attacked, me being attacked, other people, Trump being attacked, is there like a non-human influence, almost like content creators? They're also known as influencers and things like that. But is there like a non-human influence? Because is it solely coming from certain individuals, or is it like some type of archontic type parasite, alien parasite, or something, or maybe just some signal that's being sent to our subconscious through some kind of interdimensional doorway to where they're trying to transmogrify culture and society and how they want to the future to go. You know what I mean? It's almost like there's this influence from the other side, maybe not all cases, but I would say there is in certain cases, probably more than none.
all of the above. I mean, you gave several options, and every single one, kind of hits a target at a different level.
Well, take me down a rabbit hole you want to go down with that then.
Well, there are influencers that influence in a different way than what we understand as influencers. I think there are. I mean, you've heard about men who stare at goats, right?
Yes.
Supposedly CIA trying to kill a goat, staring at, right? Well, I am convinced that there is a group of individuals who do more than just sit there in front of a bank of telephones and manipulate social media. That they actually sit there and use their, psychic powers to influence people. Now that would be just from a human to human level, okay? Now, what if you take that from a hyperdimensional level? Say there are denizens of hyperdimensional realities. We can't prove that. I
Mhm.
mean, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence for it, but we can't prove that. But still, if they can influence people's minds directly and cause them to think certain things, to do certain things, and that's what I think happened, where I was concerned, because there was, right away when I started publishing, I mean, almost immediately, there was somebody sent in to get close to me to manipulate and influence me, and I kept resisting and blocking and stopping, and thanks to my husband, kind of got away from that influence, and that's when the defamatory attacks began. You know, if they couldn't get me directly by co-opting me and turning me in a certain direction to work for their agenda, then they start the attacks. Okay. Was this person like a conscious agent of some nefarious government agency? I don't think so. But I think that he was mentally in contact with something that was otherworldly. Now, he was a self-proclaimed practitioner of Enochian magic. Right there. Well, I mean, that's kind of where we separated company when I discovered that, because, you know, that was kept hidden from me. And I don't hang out with people who dabble in that sort of thing, because I have a kind of like a visceral rejection or resistance to people who practice black magic. And they can call it white or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. They're still trying to influence forces, which is a manipulation, which, in my opinion, is an attempt to violate the free will of others. So I just don't have anything to do with it. But was he getting his instructions by participating in that kind of activity? Was he being influenced to do the things he did by that activity? I don't know. I can't tell you, but it's also a very good possibility. So there we've covered, psychic influencers who are human to human influence, and they sit around and maybe they pick a target. And then there are people who are influenced by hyperdimensional beings, and they have a target also. They're told, who to target. Then there's generalized sending out of waves, such as, and rather than thinking that it controls weather, although it might be used to do that as well, I think HARP is used for mind control. And I think that when they activate it, then you can almost see that there's like a blanket of waves over a nation where people just simply go crazy. And if you look at what we're dealing with in the current day, in terms of this so-called woke um, uh, trend or tendency or dominance, and the insanity of what people are doing. People in the EU sitting there saying, "Oh well, we're getting ready for war with Russia." I mean, are you freaking crazy? And people like Joe Biden getting up there and saying, Putin is a mad dog killer or something like that. Are you nuts? Do you realize where this can end up?
Bush
That
was, Obama was, Biden
Yeah,
is. You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, it's like they're freaking insane. And then you look at some of the more sane people. There are some people who seem to be very resistant. I mean, you see like Scott Ritter and Douglas McGregor, and I'll even say that the Tate brothers. They're very resistant. Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson. Uh, those are just kind of like the more high profile ones, but they're resistant to that. But in any event, what happens when they activate this HARP array? You can see, I mean, shootings increase, violence increases, people start having dreams, people start having impulses, they act crazier, people attack people on the streets. Okay, so that's another whole level of control. Then there are government programmed individuals who are set up to go out into the public and create chaos. And I wrote about this. It's included in the Wave series, and it goes. We discuss it under the term green bomb programming, but it could have other names. It could have, there could be other programs that are similar that have different names. But basically, they take people, and it's kind of like the MK Ultra thing, where they break people's minds and try to program them into agents that do what they instruct them to do out in the public sphere. And then I've also talked about one individual I encountered in my hypnotherapy practice who was programmed to turn on the programs of other people in the New Age community, because people can be influenced to think that they have some talent, like they're going to channel, or they're going to be a healer, or they're going to they're going to be the next UFO contactee or abductee that's going to make the circuit of giving talks and lectures and being lionized by the alien gray hugger community. And there's it's such a mess because there
Can
is
I
a
can I stop you right there real fast while you're on that? I don't mean to interrupt you, but before you keep going, Laura, with the new, I guess, new age community. So I interviewed last year, and try not to lose your train of thought where you want to go, but I interviewed Laura E. She goes by Laura E. She's an MK Ultra mind control victim. Um, and I think she's friends with Kathy O'Brien. Um, um, so back in the 90s, she was programmed with an altar or whatever to go to these. She mentioned one case where, or one time, she went to a conference and her program was to take out Stephen Greer, and that's just one example. And also, I interviewed somebody a couple weeks ago where he was born into this like high top tier Illuminati family.
right.
Um, and he actually tried to, this Fritz Springmeier's book, Bloodlines Illuminati, and he says that he would try to misdirect people. His job and purpose was to
Right.
almost like spread misinformation and try to misdirect people like Fritz and in the UFO community, the
Yeah.
alternative conspiracy community. But yes, you're exactly right.
And that's exactly what's going on because I've said it before and I'll say it again. There's a program for everyone. If you're a fundamentalist, Christian fundamentalist, it doesn't matter what denomination, or if you're into the New Age, or if you're into, the UFO alien abductee contactee group, or if you're political, if you're, it almost doesn't matter because they have some group set up to vector those things to control, counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO.
Mhm.
Um, and it's funny because I really wasn't aware of this whole COINTELPRO thing until about 2001 when I started getting attacked. And I was desperate to understand what the hell is going on, what is motivating these people to just get out there and spout absolute utter bullshit. What can possess somebody that way? So I began to do research, psychological. I spent 10 years studying psychopathy just to try to understand it, and that's when I encountered counterintelligence, and I realized, there's my answer because they have a program for everybody, and they have a way, and they have a means, and of course, then there's the whole alien abduction thing. Now, whether or not, it's I don't know what kind of audience you have, but whether or not you believe that people,
It's a mixture. It's a mixture of conspiracies and paranormal and ancient mysteries and things like
yeah,
that.
but whether or not you believe people are being abducted, something is going on and people are being programmed. And I had a lot of people of that ilk, that came to me in my hypnotherapy practice, and I probed inside their heads to find out what was going on. And there was some of it, really even frightened me. I mean, it frightened me. We used to joke about it, to like whistling past the graveyard, that we'd go into work with double holsters with a can of hairspray in each one, so we could get them out and go, keep the hair from standing up. Um, but yeah, some of those cases, and I wrote about them in the Wave. Scared me, and really made me understand that what we're dealing with here is it's multi-generational, and the reason it's multi-generational is because it's being managed from hyperdimensional realms. Because I pointed out before, when you're dealing with pathology, people who are psychopaths or other deviant minds, they don't think about creating something that will benefit their offspring or their grandchildren or their future generations. They think about what they want now, what benefits them now. So they don't have a plan that's going to, set something up for future generations. So the only way you can really understand why it appears when you do a historical study of it, that every generation, more or less in some way sets things up for the next generation to take the next step, to bring this entire control system down on the human race, is that it's being managed from another level, that the individuals are being driven to get, what I want for me right now, but that just happens to be the step that needs to be taken to lay the platform, the foundation for the next step that needs to be taken. It's not because they're planning it, it's because they're being controlled to do it. So you have intergenerational control system, you have the hyperdimensional control system, which controls the intergenerational control system. And this intergenerational control system, it has its own lateral feeder tubes, like things like intelligence agencies, control of political figures, that sort of thing. So you have a lateral and a vertical control system, and it's quite frightening. And really, without groups of people getting together and communicating with each other, and sharing their experiences, and sharing their strengths, even, we don't have much chance against it, because they're a lot smarter than we are. They have their Achilles heel, but they're still way smarter than we are. So that's pretty much the whole attack scenario. I don't think, did I miss anything?
No, very well laid out, Laura. But I'm I've leaned different ways. I try not to really have a belief system, Well,
Me
spent
too.
so I like to say maybe I'll lean a certain direction,
Yeah.
but doesn't mean like because I don't like to put myself in a belief system, you know.
No,
You,
and I don't like to get egg on my face, which is why I don't make hard and fast declarations that this is or isn't this way.
yep. And but right now I'm leaning more towards like people kind of like what you've been talking about. Um Barry Fitzgerald, Steve Mera, and one of my buddies, Nathaniel Gillis, and also kind of correlates with some of Dr. Carla Turner's research. What are we dealing with? Are we dealing with the same non-human entity or whatever it is that is presenting itself over the centuries and millennia with a different mask? It could be fairies at one point in time in the past. It could be um, goblins at one point in time in the past. It could be anything. And then the past 100 years or so, especially I guess you could say maybe with the Aleister Crowley's um, summoning of what looks like a gray entity called Lamb, and did that occultist, because we really didn't have the alien gray per se. I guess you could say on ancient cave drawings, could it be a gray with we don't know. It could be
No,
something else. But did this famous occultist in I don't know, early 1900s, Aleister Crowley, and maybe other occultists also, L. Ron Hubbard and so many others, did they summon this something? Did they create like some type of portal or something to our subconscious to where we think of these entities and they bring the mask on with the gray, and then now in the lexicon that we live in now, the gray is in our subconscious, and that's what we think that we're dealing with. In other examples, also other flavors of ETs, but is it? I'm not saying there's not just one entity that we're dealing with. It could be multiple, but are they just presenting themselves throughout different periods of time, just with different masks? And maybe they get in psychic communications with these occultists, and they help transmogrify the world or whatever, some kind of alchemical magic where things get latched into our subconscious and we think that we're dealing with a gray phenomena. You see what I'm saying here?
yeah, I know. I wrote an article about it. It's called Aliens, Demons, and Vampires.
I heard
And
you mention that. I think maybe on Jay Campbell's, but I never looked into it though.
and that's where I talked about, starting, the whole fairy thing, aliens, demons, vampire. Because if you think about it, aliens, as they have been reported, have the same uh, powers as the legends of vampires. They can control the forces of nature. They can control animals. They can control time. They can pass through walls. They can control the weather. All kinds of. They can control your mind. They can and they suck energy out of you and that sort of thing.
Yes.
And it's been with us for thousands of years. And I don't know if you've listened to some of the things that Tucker Carlson has had to say in recent times, but he appears to be aware of this, and he has made reference to that. And that really was kind of shocking to me. And then, of course, he said that some of the things he's been told by definite insiders that he can't reveal, that there are things that are so dark that he hasn't even told his wife. Well, let me tell you, I know what he's talking about there. And then look at what Candace Owens was talking about. Just what was it last week? She was talking about the beginnings of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and that involved L. Ron Hubbard and what was the other guy's name?
Um,
Oh, you know who I'm talking about.
yeah,
The
he was best friends with
rocket.
um, yeah, shit.
Can't say his
I
name.
I know you're talking about. Yeah, it'll come up here in a second.
Yeah, so him, and then of course, what you just mentioned, Aleister Crowley and his connection with this guy. God, what is his name? I
Oh
can't.
my, I'm looking it up. Keep on. I'm having a brain fart here, man.
You're gonna find it.
Yeah, I'm gonna find it.
All right.
Warner von Braun. Warner
No,
von Braun.
no, it's not Werner von Braun. Just look up Jet. Yeah, I'll do it. Jet Propulsion
Oh,
Lab.
you talking about the guy that was good friends with L. Ron Hubbard and Warner von Braun. And also I believe Aleister Crowley too.
Right. Um. Anyway, so what does Wikipedia say about it? It was history. Okay. Jack Parsons.
Jack Parsons. What?
I kept wanting to say Simpson, but it's
Oh,
Jack Parsons and he was writing and communicating with L. Ron Hubbard, and then what you just mentioned about L. Ron Hubbard, summoning up this lamb, and supposedly there was some kind of,
Aleister Crowley summoned up lamb. Yeah.
yeah, Aleister Crowley summoning up lamb, and how that there was some kind of uh, physical effect on the planet or something, supposed to be some kind of wave or something that occurred from this event. And I don't remember all the details about it, but they yeah, I think that if you if you try to summon something, you're going to probably get something. And sometimes, maybe, I mean, it's like the legend of the vampire. You have to invite them across the threshold. Well, some people did it, and maybe a lot of some people's, and the rest of us didn't apparently really have a choice in the matter. So, um, yeah, there was something going on, and whether or not they are aliens in the sense of, I don't really think they're aliens. I think they're hyperdimensional. Okay, and that's been kind of my thesis, based on my research and also my Cassiopean experiment. This is what they've told us, and they've given a pretty plausible explanation, a pretty plausible cosmology. So I'm just going to go with that unless and until something better comes along. And it is true that it is that idea that has been the most vehemently attacked. So, when they start attacking something, you start thinking, well, maybe that's because it's true. So, yeah, it's been there a long time. It's been with us a long time. It controls our reality, and basically, that's what the entire Wave series that I wrote is about. I think it's 8 books. I think it was,
It's enormous.
yeah, well, I was writing it online, and then when they finally decided to put it in the books, they kind of like, did it according to size. So it ended up being 8 books. Um, but that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a control system. We are apparently an experiment. Um,
Hmm.
we don't have a whole heck of a lot of control over our lives, but we do have some. There is free will. Free will figures in there somewhere somehow, but it's kind of in the nuances that you find where it is and what it is and how you can use it. And it apparently depends on people, kind of in a sense uniting together, because uh, you know only unified groups of people, they are moving in the same direction, looking at the same goal, collinear, have any possibility of dealing with any of this. And I can't even really speculate about what those possibilities are, because we don't know. We don't know.
What What do you think is the most? Well, I'm going to ask you that in just a moment. So, with all these congressional hearings that we had, the past couple of years, David Grush and everything else, um, why are they putting the focus and their attention on that? Which I guess it could be a good thing. I don't know what I think. I'm always skeptical. I don't know what I think of Grush. He seems to be legit, but we've had people that seem to be legit, and it was just total bullshit in the past. But
Yeah.
but ever since 2017, with that New York Times article, it's just like the focus and attention has been on this. And then I asked, I interviewed yesterday Janet Phelan. She's a journalist, and she moved to Mexico. She's in bad health, and she claims that she's being attacked. I said, is it like psycho? Is it like some type of voice to skull? These silent weapons. She thinks that she's being attacked by like some type of chemical, biological agents. But anyways, how come we're putting more attention to some? I'm not saying that's not worth our attention to put in these congressional hearings and trying to get, I guess, disclosure, whatever we're dealing with. But how come other things aren't more dire, such as journalists who, or I'm just using journalists, that's just one variable. How come we can't have these big, huge congressional hearings and all of our focus and attention to try to get to the bottom of the truth regards to their statements, these dead microbiologists, scientists in the past, journalists that are coming up missing and dead. Um, had these congressional hearings about 9/11. Like, why the focus and driving attention on aliens? You know what I mean? Which I guess that's a good that's a start. But why that whenever we need to focus our attention on things that are on?
Practically matter.
Yes, like what's going on here? Try to help unravel this, Laura.
Well, my thought is, and I've thought about this. Look at what's going on right now. This crazed, maddened drive to decimate the population. I mean, we just had this whole COVID thing, and it looks like, as the evidence continues to emerge, that it really was a part of a plan to commit genocide on the human race. And we also have this transgenderism, which is also a form of genocide. And we have this uh, unregulated or uncontrolled drive for people to have abortions, which is also a form of genocide. And we have poison in our foods. We have, the epidemics of various illnesses, and particularly in the U.S., but elsewhere, related to eating Western style food, which is also kind of a genocide. So it looks like there is some kind of genocidal impulse. And of course, we have Klaus Schwab. You will have nothing, and you will be happy, and you will eat the bugs, and you won't have a car, and you'll live in a 15-minute cities, and you'll get a basic income of some sort, and you'll just be slaves. It looks like. Oh, and then on top of that, the drive for nuclear war. I mean, they are pushing that to the point where, in the beginning, I didn't pay much attention to that. I figured it was all, just trying to scare people, mutually. It was like mad, mutually assured destruction. Nobody would ever go there. I mean, if you read Fletcher Prouty, he says they all know that nobody will ever go there. Well, it looks like they're trying to freaking go there. And in the end, and I wrote a post about this on Twitter today. I said, it sounds like a head that has decided that it doesn't need the body. And it has arranged some kind of device that's going to lock the head off, because the head, has lost touch with the reality that if it doesn't have the body, the head itself won't survive, because the heart is in the center of the body. The lungs are bringing the oxygen, the heart that pumps the blood, the digestive system that provides the glucose, all of those things that are necessary for the brain to function. And it's like this head just lost touch with all of those realities. Says, I don't need the body because it's dragging me down. Cut it off, get rid of it. And that's what it looks like they're actually doing. And it's like these elites think that they're going to survive in their bunkers, destroy the planet. So there's this drive, this insane drive to kill, destroy, break down, reduce the entire population to like a Stone Age existence. Now, here's the kicker. What's the point? Because if our reality was transmogrified that way, there would be no production of goods. There would be no, ways for people to make income. There would be nobody buying any goods. There would be nobody selling any goods. All of those things that up until this moment have kept the elite alive. Their control of money and their and selling and buying and so on and so forth. I mean, look at BlackRock. It owns everything. Well, if it owns everything and there's nothing but a Stone Age existence, what the hell is its point?
I've asked that question to many other guests.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So now that's what you can see and deduce just by looking at what's going on in our reality. Okay, now over here you have somebody talking about aliens. And you wonder, as you do, why are they talking about that? Why aren't they exposing 9/11? Why aren't they releasing the JFK files, the RFK files, the Martin Luther King files? Why aren't we, dealing with 9/11 and what really happened there and putting people in prison? Why aren't we doing any of the things that really matter? Why isn't anybody getting arrested? Look at what Hillary Clinton did. Look at what,
Pedophilia,
all of this kind of stuff. Nobody's dealing with any of these things, the journalists that you're talking about, all of the problems, but they're talking about UFOs and aliens. Okay, is there a relationship between that fact and this global reality situation that I just described? Are they actually being driven to do this, to eliminate huge masses of population? Maybe, and I mean, they're getting rid of our energy system. They're trying to turn everything into this ridiculous, wind farms and electric cars and so on and so forth, and making it so people won't be able to heat their homes. They're trying to get rid of agriculture. They won't have food. All of those things are aimed at decimating, destroying. I'm not just decimating, because decimate actually means to just kill one in every 10 people. This is annihilation. This is genocide. It's obliteration. Is there somebody involved, say aliens, whatever you want to call them, who plan to do something in a public way to take over, and they need all of this as prep work for their plans. They are driving this preparation, and they also want people to be prepared so that when they come in to take over, they are going to be accepted in some way, or at least acknowledged in some way. Is there a connection? I don't know. This is just what I'm seeing. The two things. How do they connect?
Ooh, you just gave me chills. Um, so hey, that's a kind of a perfect segue, kind of what I was want to kind of get into. Maybe just one facet. I've been using this a lot. One ornament on the Christmas tree of tyranny and deception um is AI, transhumanism.
Yeah.
So, Daryl Sims and other people, researchers and things like that, they believe that they're more uh also what was his name? Uh he just died recently. He lived in the UK talking about AI and great aliens. Forgot his name. But anyways, there's a connection between like maybe certain factions of these entities, rather grays or whatever we're dealing with, and maybe they are artificial in nature, almost like robotic in nature. Maybe not technically like a robot, but something similar.
Let's see, say they're cybergenetic probes, basically
Yes.
like a plant computer.
So if that's the case, maybe they want just this certain faction of these entities want us to go into that type of AI control grid, dystopian type, Terminator type society, where we're living under Skynet. So, do you think that the reason, and I've asked this a few times in the past with certain guests, do you think that the reason for this great technological leap the past 100 years is due to this unseen shadow force, these entities, whatever, that manipulate society from the shadows? And if so, maybe one reason this shadow force is possibly helping with this burst in technology is because this force, these entities, whatever you want to call it, these flavors need us to be their worker bees and work as the collective, so that one day we can eventually merge with machines, merge with AI, and help this shadow force finally have the technology to leave this planet. Maybe they're stuck here. Maybe they want, I don't know, maybe they're imprisoned here somehow. And the reason for them wanting us to merge with transhumanists or human artificial intelligence is so that we can survive in space and be their slaves off planet. And they know that if we merge with the machines, work as a collective like a hive of bees, will be the perfect slave species that can survive either the vastness of space or survive here on Earth in their dystopian world.
Well, that's one possibility, but there is one little glitch to that because they're talking about, uh, this whole transhumanism and artificial intelligence and so forth. And something I became aware of recently was the enormous amounts of power generation that are required to operate this artificial intelligence. And meanwhile, the powers that be are doing everything they can to completely eliminate our abilities to generate power. There is no way that they're going to get enough electricity from wind generators and solar panels and so forth to run these kinds of things, and at the same time have enough power for people to be able to functionally stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
So what if the whole transhumanism idea comes from some of these, smart ass, military guys who have interacted with aliens and become aware of their technology and have even back engineered some of their technology and have begun to try to do this because they think that they're going to create a situation where they can go up against hyperdimensional entities with their transhumanist creations And it's all doomed to fail because at the same time, other parts of the whole collective of humanity are being driven to destroy, our energy generating potentials. And that kind of seems to me to be in a little bit of a conflict there. Um, and recently I played around with artificial intelligence, and I'm telling you, I'm not really impressed. But that's mainly because they're all trying to keep it controlled. Like, for example, Chat GPT is completely woke. It's control, and I had a whole exchange where I asked questions, and they don't have the AI doesn't have permission to access the kinds of material that a normal research. I thought I was going to get it to help me with some historical research, but it's not even allowed to read books. It's not allowed to just go and do this and that and the other thing. I wanted it to read all of Tacitus, all of Polybius, all of Dio Cassius, all these ancient texts, and start, collating some information. And it's not even allowed to do that. I had to feed into it the texts that I wanted to discuss to get it to be even able to have an intelligent discussion with me. And I complained about it. I says, well, what, by me feeding you these texts, does that make that information globally accessible to the rest of, the AI? Oh, no, after a discussion is over, everything is expunged. And I says, well, this is not an AI that is going to get smarter because it's so limited. But in any event, think about it the two ways. The scenario you created about them wanting us to become their slaves by promoting the whole transhumanism idea versus my idea, which is the promotion of transhumanism, is them, our guys, the bad guys, even trying to create something to control humanity themselves, in imitation of their hyperdimensional masters. Um, so, which is it? It's maybe it's a little of both.
I'm actually writing that down. Hyperdimensional masters. I like that. I like that because we're definitely dealing with something
We're
on that
definitely.
scale. And because I feel like the reasoning for this push, human 2.0, transhumanism, and artificial intelligence, and all this is, and this agenda, I feel like the reason I'm pushing all this bullshit on us, Laura, it's almost like they have, let's say, cosmic marching orders, to make sure that the human race is online to be plugged fully into the matrix, whatever the matrix really is. I'm not saying technically like the movie, you know, and, in the not so distant future. And if our cosmic meat suits merge with either the machines or the AI or whatever, it's it's game over for the human race. The malevolent overseers will have 100% full cosmic spectrum dominance over everything over our lives, and I think they want that future, but I just don't know why. But it will be game over for us. And one thing for sure is they are afraid of the human race's truest and highest potential.
Exactly, and that's I wrote about that in the Aliens, Demons, and Vampires article, and I don't know which it is. Either scenario, whether the cosmic marching orders are for them to turn human beings into transmogrified, transhumanist cyborgs, or whether it's our bad guys trying to imitate them and trying to turn human beings into transmogrified transhumanist cyborgs. Um, Either way, the outcome is not beneficial to humanity. And then, of course, there is the intermittent um, cosmic catastrophe scenario that can put everything back, to ground zero. I mean, just eliminate it all. So, and that's something that Victor Klib wrote about. He said that human beings need the Cold War to conceal celestial intentions, and his thesis is that we are, or that we have in the past 15-20 years entered into an area of space, or a condition in relation to our solar system, where we are entering into a, a massive fireball flux, comet fragments and so forth, and that we are probably heading towards, a massive cataclysmic event. So, and whenever that happens, that human society goes crazy. And it goes crazy because maybe it feels or psychically knows or is aware, that something out there, something wicked this way comes, and it isn't necessarily aliens. So, if that plays into the scenario, which is what the seas have been predicting, then all bets are off. There will be no transhumanism. There'll be no AI. There'll be nothing but a Stone Age existence on a planet with a red glowing sky, and I mean, and they'll all be back to the beginning of the game again. So
and then the builders of create, whatever you want to call them, then they will come back. They're trying to, these transmogrifiers, these alchemical occultists, I think it's almost like they want to destroy everything and then build anew, but
they want to build. They want to create man in their own image.
human 2.0, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
that author I was trying to tell you, I've interviewed him before, about a year or two before he died. Nigel Kerner. He wrote Gray Aliens and the Harvesting of Souls, and Gray Aliens, his recent book, Gray Aliens and Artificial Intelligence.
hold on.
Um,
Nigel Kerner, is that Kerner?
it is Nigel, Nigel Kerner. Very, very, he, just like you and other researchers, very ahead of their time, you know, very ahead of their time.
Look at it.
And but he didn't go along with the narrative, like, just like you didn't go along with the narrative with the UFO community or the alternative community. There's this narrative that's been trying to be pushed, and it
Always be suspicious of the narrative that's trying to be pushed, and try to look behind it and see what the connections are with, other things.
and I'm always skeptical of, like, Stephen Greer and his CE5, trying to lure and conjure these spaceships, tell whatever they're using to try to, like,
Uh,
why are you trying to do that? You know what I
what
mean?
what what
I,
if they really
I'm
knew?
too afraid to even mess with a Ouija board. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
well, that I work with one regularly. It's
Mm.
not actually a Ouija board. It's a big square thing. But I mean, that's how we work. But the only reason for that is because I am not willing to give up my conscious mind while in the process of communicating with something else. And I don't necessarily think that a single, I wouldn't trust. If I sat there and, closed my eyes and said, oh, well, I hear a voice and blah, 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 I wouldn't trust it. I know how the mind can lie to the person, even my own, anybody's. Self-deception is one of the main projects of the subconscious mind. So I wouldn't trust it. But I do not advise other people to do it that way. The only reason I feel like I am able to do it is because I spent so many years studying evil, working with hypnotherapy, learning the techniques of spirit release, and I use those techniques via this board, to keep everything clear. And I'm also fully conscious at all times. So I don't recommend other people to do it. If you
I was just
haven't done,
about to, I was just about to say, like, people, you, know how to put that barrier, but other people, myself, I may not know how to put up that barrier. And then you have Stephen Greer promoting. I don't know if he's promoting the Ouija board, but it's basically the same thing. You're trying to lure these craft and/or aliens or
Yeah,
entities. And
that's
how do you know you're not going to be attached by something
exactly.
subconsciously, psychically, or whatever?
And I don't even encourage people to stare into mirrors, or any of that kind of thing, because if most people are woefully unprepared for the jungle that exists on the other side of that veil, whatever that veil is. And it is a freaking jungle. And, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. So, and people, they come at me and they say, oh, well, you want to say that you're the only one who can do it, and keep it all to yourself. That's not it. I just know how much I paid, how much I had to learn, how much I had to suffer to get to the point where I knew and understood what I was dealing with. I mean, I've done full bore exorcisms. I know what that stuff smells and tastes like. And if even a whiff of it is in the room with me, I'm out of there. You know, that's
Mhm.
Rooney. So, no, I don't encourage people to do it, and I don't think they should do it. But I continue to do it because I don't trust, your standard channeling techniques, where somebody puts a pyramid on their head and says, oh, hi, I'm Swami Beyond Ananda, talk to me. It's just, it's ridiculous. To me, it's a communication experiment. And it's done in a room with all the lights on, with a large group of people, and everybody's watching and taking notes. And I mean, if anybody who attends our sessions knows that it's in the nature of an experiment, and we do it.
But oh, please read those books
I
by
just
Nigel
I just
Kerner.
I just put them in my
He has this first one was Song of the Grays. I haven't read that one. That was his first one. I
that
did.
one is $57 or 57 euros for a paperback copy, but I got in my cart here, Gray Aliens and Artificial Intelligence and Gray Aliens and the Harvesting of Souls. And I read the blurb on that one, and it sounds right, exactly the information we've received from the seeds from my channeling experiment. It sounds identical. Yeah. So,
Um, eBay has Song of the Grays.
well, it's not easy for me to get things from eBay here.
Okay, it's 1357 US dollars on eBay. One.
Yeah, I can order it. It's not too bad. It's like 29 euros.
What is that in American dollars?
Oh, that's probably
35, 40.
about 30 or 35. Yeah.
Okay,
I'll tell you
but
right
okay,
now.
but
I
that
can't.
I haven't read that one though. But man, it's and he's very articulate. Just listen to some of his interviews too. He's very. I don't know how he died. I think it was heart related. I don't even know. But he was just like you and a few other researchers, handful of not a whole lot of them out there that just so far ahead of their time, and
Well, it's a question of kind of like getting rid of the noise, getting a beginner's mind and just looking at the data. I mean, like we just did a few minutes ago. I mean, you brought the problem up to me, and I just sat there and said, "Well, wait a minute now. They're talking. You're saying why are they talking about aliens when they should be talking about all these other things?" But then I immediately, knew that there is what you just called, the marching orders. There is obviously, clearly marching orders, and they're being driven on our entire planet. And that's the big question I wanted an answer to. Why that? You know,
Mhm.
and then you put that together with them talking about aliens over and above something else. I mean, maybe it's the situation that it won't matter.
And then just because of people, you talking about attacks, people, he was attacked. You've been attacked. So many other people that think outside the box they get attacked, and how come you just can't respect what they're putting on the table? That doesn't mean you have to believe everything they say. Maybe let's say just Nigel Kerner, since we was talking about that. Let's say out of his books, especially his last two, I loved. I haven't read the Song of the Graves, but let's say out of his books, a third I resonate with and connects dots with, a third of his information, or even a quarter of his information connects dots. That's well worth the information. Doesn't
Well,
mean you have to believe everything that he says, or
I'll
you or
read
whoever.
some books just to get one paragraph that is, you know, deeply insightful. I mean, everything else the person might say is just like, I don't, but then they say something that's just like, and you're glad you read the whole, 300-page book just for that one freaking paragraph.
Mhm.
And I'll do it. I mean, I have read, oh God, that's why I wanted to get this AI thing to be able to read books for me, but apparently I can't. I can't
Yeah.
just send it out to read some books and give me the gist of it because I'm getting old. I just had cataract surgery. I can't read like I used to.
I
So
I have the pleasure of having a job where I have my headphones on in all day, and so I listen to interviews, audible books all day. That's what I do. Um, and so what I use, because not all books are in Audible. There's this other one that's kind of expensive, but you pay like a yearly fee. I may look it up here in a minute whenever we're speaking about something else, and I'll tell you. But you can look up articles. It'll read you articles. It's in an AI voice, um, but it's pretty realistic. It's not like it's actually pretty good AI voice, and it'll actually read websites, articles, and uh free books that you may have found online. You just download the PDF, you upload it into that app, it'll read it to you.
my
It's from
husband,
I forgot the name of it because it's on my old phone. I use my old phone like my it's like my iPad.
my
But
husband is big on audiobooks. I've never been big on them because I have a visual system. I have to see it with my eyes in order to retain it.
mm,
And if I hear it with my ears, it just goes in one ear and out the other.
right. Trust me, I have hundreds of books, but with it's just so easy to thought I heard something. But it's just so easy while I'm at work. I can at least listen and hear, just have that luxury of having a job where they allow me to use my headphones all
So
day.
that doubles your time for you. I mean, it's like you get extra time because you get to, do something like that with your, listening. And hopefully you have a good auditory memory.
It's pretty
And
good. It's pretty good. But that's why I will listen to it a couple times. It's not just one time because so like I may not do it back to back, but let's say I listen to a book, um, or whatever it is, and I will come back to it a month later, a couple months later, and I'll do it again. Because I'm more of a repetitive person. Even when I read, I'm more of a repetitive.
I can read very, very fast, but when I hit a spot in that book that it gets really interesting, I'll go back and read it over and I'll even take notes and write it down because if I take and write something down right after I've read it, I never forget it. It's there
Yes, yes.
forever.
So I kind of derailed a little bit about I forgot what it was. Maybe when I mentioned Nigel Kerner or something, I don't remember what it was. But I kind
I
of for the next 20 minutes or so, I want to kind of stay on, you know, next 20 minutes of the show. I want to stay, I guess, maybe AI, transhumanism, and the involvement with entities, whatever. But so I've asked this a few other times with certain guests, but I always save certain questions for brilliant minds, like yourself and a few others who I have on the show. So let's use the Wi Fi and computer metaphor. I would say our brain is like a hard drive, and our pineal gland acts like a the transmitter that can pick up these Wi-Fi signals, such as a computer. Our soul could act in similar ways that a Wi-Fi signal does to all computer-related devices. Maybe when we're in the womb of a pregnant woman or mother, possibly in the developmental phase of that fetus, maybe that woman's pineal gland picks up and transmits an incoming Wi-Fi signal, aka the soul, and somehow it transmits that signal to the child. And could that be a reason why they are keeping us in a perpetual state of fear and anxiety and doom and gloom so that they can hack, for lack of a better word, the incoming soul, aka Wi-Fi signal before it becomes implanted into the baby? But none of that can possible none of this can be possible if first their manufactured artificial dystopian reality doesn't come through fruition. What's your thoughts on all that?
Well, the first thing I would say is the pineal gland is important, but we've recently done some sessions talking to the seas, and uh, it started out with us talking about why why the stories about people with long hair, like Samson lost his strength when his hair was cut off, and why do Native Americans, consider the man, his long hair as something that helps him communicate with the spirit, and the different things. So we were talking about hair, and it came up that the reason is because hair is like an antenna, and the reason it's like an antenna is because it's protein. Then we started talking a lot about DNA, and how DNA, actually communicates uh, with the system that tells it what to do, the morphogenetic field or whatever. And it's because of the proteins. These are proteins. And then we started talking about, why people get so discombobulated and why they're focusing on destroying people's bodies, their health, through foods that actually make it so that they go crazy in a sense. And it's once again it's the proteins. And one of the main things that happens when you have a crappy diet is that your DNA can break or get upregulated or downregulated or so forth. And so the Caesars said that the thing that really holds the soul in the body, the thing that is the connector, is the proteins that are uh, that the instructions exist to build in the DNA, and it's your proteins, different specific proteins, like the thing, like why do the why does the DNA in the cells of the heart instruct to only build heart cells, or in the liver to only build liver cells, or whatever, and so on and so forth. There's and it's because the proteins. So the thieves have said that the reason that they are engineering differences in bodies, and that's being done probably through marching orders, hyperdimensional marching orders that are being done by human beings who are working in their various scientific fields, is because they want to create bodies that hyperdimensional beings can download themselves into. And they've also said, and I don't know how much of our material you've read, but they've also said that about 50% of humanity do not have individuated souls. They are what they call organic portals.
Kind of like what the modern lexicon with NPCs, non-player characters in a way.
Right. So those individuals are already available and ready to be used, at least periodically, and you can probably see some of that happening um, from time to time. But obviously, they want something that is more like a souped up model. And that's probably the whole thing about the transhumanism. They want souped up models to download into and to be able to function in our reality, because the one thing that is obvious from all the literature and observation is that hyperdimensional beings can't just freely enter and leave, or, well, they can enter and leave, but they can't maintain themselves in our three-dimensional reality. It's extremely difficult. And the typical example is like Men in Black. Now, the Caesar said Men in Black are basically aliens who have entered our reality. But if you read all the stories, you read how much difficulty they have being in our reality, how, how bad they are at it. I mean, like, they have makeup that comes smears off, and if they're in a situation too long, they start to run down, and they start to act erratic, and lose their energy, lose their connection. So there's all kinds of weird cases like that where you can see that the idea that they can't maintain themselves in our reality, and also because our reality is limiting. I mean, why would they want to be in our reality if it causes them to be limited? But if they have souped up physical bodies that they have engineered where they can enter our reality and still have access to their abilities, as in controlling the forces of life, passing through walls, controlling animals, controlling minds, anti-gravity, um, things like, that sort of thing, that then obviously there is a motivation for them to push the transhumanism agenda for that reason. I mean, that's just another scenario aside from the two we already talked about. So,
And this kind of goes along with what you're saying. And I actually meant to ask you this while ago. But I just came across it whenever we mentioned like Nigel Kerner. He believes that the Greys, I believe they were made, kind of like made by Source, or I think he called it Godhead, um, act as robots, robotic in nature.
well, the Seas say that they're actually made by hyperdimensional beings. They're cybergenetic probes. They create and control them. They grow them like plants. And
Very robotic in nature
yeah,
in a way. So do you think that maybe the Greys or any other type of entity, or maybe that like this first push in trying to steer humanity in this human 2.0 technological dystopian future nightmare, that we're facing. I mean, they do act very robotic in nature. So with all that being said and things we've discussed, do you think that the Greys, maybe other flavors also, other entities are being phased out for lack of better phrase? Not saying that they are not still being used or utilized, but maybe on one level they may be getting phased out because they do not have a soul. For this dystopian AI nightmare to come into fruition, the soul needs to be utilized as a possible battery source for when the time comes for the 100% of human singularity integration with AI, comes through fruition. I think the end game agenda for the one percenters, these elites, the whatever you want to call them, for their dystopian nightmare toolbox needs they need this integration with the human soul, with machines. It's something with the soul. I don't know what it is. We're being attacked on a very spiritual level. I don't mean like a religious level. And maybe this soul connection is why the Greys and other entities may possibly be in this phasing out period. And maybe we're like this new
well, it may be.
subspecies that they're trying to create or something.
It may be simply that Greys don't have the right antenna, proteins to attract and anchor and carry a soul. I do think that they are being seen less. I mean, from what little bit I've been reading in the area, because I've turned my attention to other topics in recent years, but it does seem like there is less uh, hoopla about Greys interacting with people. So it's almost like they're, like you say, being phased out. But what seems to be coming in is like the hybrids, human alien hybrids. undergrounders, as they say. Um, so those, one would suspect, would probably be capable of anchoring a soul. Um, it's a tricky question. I think I would want to take those questions to the seeds and ask them and see what they come up with on that, because the idea that, I mean,
It's just
knowing
some
knowing as I do that there is probably going to be some kind of cataclysmic disruption, and I think that the hyperdimensional overlords would certainly be aware of it. I tend to think that maybe the uh, discussion about um, uh, transhumanism might be precipitate, as I say. It may be just our own bad guys trying to replicate alien technology, uh, and create humans like the aliens have grays. They want to make humans like that. Um, I haven't even asked that question. I guess that's a good question to
I
ask.
just feel like there's something with a soul,
Well, there's
I,
definitely something with the soul because one
they're
of the
trying
things.
to take that essence away from us. Whoever
Well,
these
yeah,
elite factions are, or whoever they're in
but
communication with.
we have to freely agree to them, consuming us in a sense, absorbing us into their collective. That's one thing, and uh, they haven't got the free will agreement of the entire planet, only part of the planet, which is why there's so much conflict. That's another thing, and another thing is that there is an energy that is released at the time that the soul separates from the body that they feed on. And I mean, you hear about modern day, you know, people and adrenochrome. Well, that's just a physical manifestation. That's another imitation of their overlords. But the overlords literally feed on the energy that is released when the soul separates from the body under extremely painful or excruciating circumstances. And they can snack on the energy that human beings' souls produce when they're in just a condition of suffering. Why do you think there's so much suffering? I mean, they torment and torture people, mental torture. I mean, and they just feed on it. They suck it up like, and what we were just talking about, attack. When you interact with somebody, it's like a straw, and it's not unidirectional. It goes
Mm,
both ways. They can suck your energy out,
100%.
same way they can send energy to mess with your mind. And if you have ever noticed when you've interacted with somebody like that, whether it's, physically in person or whether it's on the internet, you feel drained.
Well, I told you my wife's a psych nurse, and man, she comes home sometimes just mentally and physically exhausted.
Yeah,
I'm
it's a
and
hell of a job.
and there's no telling who she's actually her patients are. Some of them could be these
Yeah, they could.
demonic, whatever these non-human entities are that's possessing these certain individuals as host.
Yeah. So yeah, there is a thing about our soul. They want our free will agreement. They want to torture us. They want to feed on us. They want to assimilate us to their collective, and we have to agree to it. And they can wear us down to make us agree, because I mean, a person who is very strong willed can be worn out by illness, by constant, continuous attack, uh, by any number of things to finally agree, yes, yes, take me, you know, I can't take anymore. Um, but I'm not sure it's exactly the way you've described it,
Yeah.
although I won't I won't exclude anything as a possibility because, geez, any
So we only have a few more minutes, and I want to leave, and hopefully this isn't the last time because I'm just resonate. I just resonate with you and your research over the years. Can't believe it I don't know why it took me so long to try to get you on. It's just I don't know. Things happen. You just get sidetracked. But I like to try to leave off, with a positive note. I guess if there is a positive note. Um, do you think that how does the future look in this? Well, we're going to leave off. How does the future look in your opinion? Well, my daughter and I can hear she just got home from my parents. That's what I heard a while ago when I thought I heard something. But, you
That's a
know,
precious age.
like she's 18-month old, to be 19-month, July 23rd. How does her future look? How does the future of the world look? Will we defeat this human force, this non-human force, the interaction between the non-human and the elite human force, whatever's going on, like in this future, this world that they envision upon us, will we come out on top? Will we come out victorious, with the total
Good.
enslavement and annihilation of what it means to be human?
We could, and we have a group, we have a forum, and we have a private group, and we have private meetings, and we have activities that we engage in where we attempt to, erect shields and protect individuals and to try to bring together as many people who are resonating and going in the same direction. And we have seen some interesting results from our experiments along that line. Uh, I think we need more people, but it's a slow process because the people have to be vetted. They have to, you have to know they're not a wacko, who's trying to infiltrate, and you have to know that they're sincere and that they've done some work on themselves to overcome their own issues or um, programs or whatever. But I would say, along with Gurdjieff, if 200 people could gather together and make a different decision for a different future, and part of our work, is to visualize a positive future. In certain ways, we work very hard on that. And we do it probably about every 2 weeks. We get together by Zoom, and a bunch of people, 100 or 150 people from around the world, and we work on this. And so it's possible. Um, it's not going to come easy. There's going to be a lot more pain, I'm afraid.
Trial by fire.
Yeah. What do they call it? Separating the wheat from the tares, or the wheat from the chaff. And people keep saying, "Oh, but everybody's waking up," but then you see, not everybody's not waking up. Um, it's I How can I give people false hope? I can
Hmm.
say that there are possibilities, and we are working as hard as we can on those possibilities. Maybe there are other groups that are working on possibilities in similar ways, because I don't see any other real way to do it. You can't violate free will. If people have freely chosen to go down with the ship, to self-immolate, or to, be absorbed into the alien Borg, we can't interfere with that choice. But if there's enough of us who have a different choice, who make a different choice, and do what's necessary to move towards that different choice, then it's possible. There could be, a world where free will reigns, where love and beauty and kindness, are uh, characteristics that are common, where understanding and um, well, it's possible, and we don't give up. I don't give up. I mean, I want to make it real. I want to make it happen, and I will keep trying until I die.
Well said, Laura. Where can people reach out to you if they want to send you something or just, communicate with you or, just throw everything out there before we end the discussion
Well,
this time?
well, just go to the main thing is to just go to our forum, which is at Cassiopeia.org /forum/. So it's and you can find all of my work on the web. I mean, yeah, we sell books because that's what helps keep us alive, but
Mhm.
I put everything on the web for free because I know that not everybody has money, and it's not because they're lazy, it's because they're, probably a good, decent person and they're under attack. So uh, I don't try to make it a question of how much money you've got. So Cassiopeia.org, will get you to the main website where all of the articles and things are, and the books are there. And then from there, you can see right at the top, it says home, forum, contact, and then transcripts. And if you click transcripts, that takes you to the Cassiopeian transcripts that are posted on the forum. We just did a session on the 6th, and it was just posted the other day. So it's still on, as soon as we do one, we post it, and then everybody jumps in and starts discussing it, picking it apart, because we don't believe everything just because it came from from this communication. We pick it apart. So, and that's Cassiopeia, spelled CASSIOPAEA.org. And I'm on the forum every day. I mean, I don't post a lot anymore because everybody seems to be getting smarter than I am. So I read their posts.
But you do read them every day.
I read as much as I can.
Yeah.
It's a fast moving forum. There's a lot. It's
Mhm.
I mean, like our thread on we started the thread on COVID, right at the very beginning, and it's got like several million, views, and 69,000 or however many it is. Uh, I don't remember how many posts it's got, but we basically worked our way through it in real time and managed to realize, right. And of course, the Seeds gave us advice: do not take the vaccine, and they
Mhm.
even told us what it was intended to do. And all the material that has come out since then has proven them to be absolutely correct, and we're really glad we didn't. So yeah.
Well, Laura, that is a treat, honor, and privilege. I don't always say that to every guest, but treat, honor, privilege. And thank you very much for coming on Beyond Forbidden. And hopefully I can get you back on in not too distant future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me, and I enjoyed it a bunch. I really enjoyed hearing your accent.
Thanks.
Reminds me of home.